Our next agenda item is going to be a mid-year report identifying specific initiatives and progress toward achieving the Board of Supervisors 2019 policy objectives. So I recall this is our first mid-year report. Is that correct, Allison?
That is correct. So we're very pleased to present to you our first mid-year report of the Board of Supervisors initiatives. And we have Molly Dick, the Assistant CEO, who will be presenting the information to you today.
So Molly, please take it away.
Thank you, Chair Anderson and members of the board. Good morning. I am excited to be presenting this first ever mid-year report on your board objectives. And I really, before I start, want to thank staff for all the hard work they put into not only the work that we're going to be reviewing today, but also their assistance in creating this report and documenting all of that work that's been accomplished so far. So the purpose of this mid-year report is to track the initiatives, milestones, and actions that staff have taken to move the needle on your board's objectives. Another purpose is to provide a quarterly update so that you will have regular updates on the progress that's being made, not just when board items have come before you like you've heard already this morning, but to have more of a comprehensive quarterly update. Another goal of this report is to create a public-facing document that really increases transparency for the community to understand what staff have been working on to move your objectives forward and therefore increase community communication. So you're very familiar with this diagram. This is a representation of how your board sets priorities and the process that's been happening for years as far as integrating your priorities into the budget, and then how department heads have been moving those items forward. But I wanted to share it with you again this morning and incorporate this red section that I just added. We're here in the Q2 report and presentation in July, representing the updates that have happened since January at your board's workshop. We intend to bring a written report after the end of Q3, which would be in October, and then a full presentation back to your board at the workshop in January. So that's how the quarterly reports will be coming to you in the future, with mid-year, with 2 presentations and then 2 written reports on the off quarters. So in January, your board identified 9 objectives. They were fiscal stability and core services, wildfire preparedness, addressing homelessness, affordable housing, cannabis regulations, economic development, civic engagement, parks and recreation, and finally the redevelopment of what we refer to as Lot 6. So this report is the accumulation of multiple departments working together to address your board's objectives. It links the work of all of these departments and rolls them back up into your board's objectives. So it creates a scorecard that combines all of this work and links it into one place for you to review. The report identifies approximately 70 initiatives that address your 9 board objectives, as well as 18 performance measures. The report is not a substitute for the specific plans that are already in place. As you know, the county has many plans, whether it's related to homelessness or wildfire or infrastructure development or IT projects. We have many plans that we work for. And this is not intended to replace any of those existing plans, but more just to create a comprehensive picture of everything together. The process of developing this report helped us to identify the needs and the challenges of moving your objectives forward, as well as related to collecting and reviewing data. So we did identify some areas where we realized that we aren't collecting good data. We want to establish some baselines and therefore be able to expand our performance measures in the future. So that's one area that we expect to be more enhanced in the future as we continue to bring this report back to you each quarter. And I also wanted to point out that the initiatives and measures that we identified in the spring, which are reported out to you here, may be added to over time. So as new opportunities arise, as we receive new grants, as new needs are identified, you may see additional measures and performance measures, or initiatives and performance measures added to this report throughout the year as we identify additional opportunities there. So this is a screenshot of the actual software tool that we're using. It's called ClearPoint Strategy. The tool, I want to point out the status symbols. This is a little bit of a key for you as you look through the report. So one of the ways to look at this report is just to quickly see what's on track, what's behind track, what's been completed. So on the left there, you see the status symbols. And so the green arrow that's facing up indicates that that initiative is on track. It's moving forward. Everything is going well. The yellow box indicates that it's moving forward, but there's some risk. We have some concerns. Either we're not sure about funding, we're not sure about resources, we're feeling like we're doing some, but we need to do more. That's kind of what the yellow square indicates. The red arrow facing down indicates that it's behind plan. We've had setbacks specifically to that initiative, and we'll talk about a few of those specifically. The black checkbox means that it's completed. It's already been completed this year. You'll see a few of those as we go through this presentation. And then the blue circle indicates that that initiative hasn't been started yet. It's scheduled to be started. Maybe it's something that we don't do until the fall or something like that. And so you'll see that evolve as your reports come to you quarterly. So I wanted to just review a little bit of the report that you received as part of your board packet. It's divided into 4 sections. The beginning section is really an introduction and covers a lot of the information that I just went over in this initial part of this presentation. The second section covers the descriptive pages for each of your board's objectives. And so it identifies the objective and then each of the initiatives associated with that objective with the status symbol of each of those initiatives. The third section is a summary table, which actually shows the progress report, progress update for each one of the initiatives that we've identified. And then the final section just highlights a few of the initiatives that we wanted to highlight for this particular report. So with that, I'm going to get into those highlights and review each of your board's objectives and the highlights of the work that's been done to date. If you have any questions after we've reviewed this, I won't be able to talk about every one of the 70 initiatives, but if you have any questions or something I didn't cover, we have an audience full of experts who are doing the work every day and can help to answer any additional questions that you may have. So starting with fiscal stability and core services, your board's objective is to maintain the county's financial stability and core services. Pretty simple objective there. We identified 9 initiatives associated with this objective. 8 of those are on track, and 1 of them has been completed. So the initiatives range from increasing the collection of delinquent taxes in the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office to adopting a pension management policy, which your board has done. Several of the initiatives in this area are driven by your board's budget policies, such as controlling staffing levels and county costs by reviewing all requests for staffing changes and vacancies, by managing core service levels and reorganizing or streamlining services, and implementing technology, roads, and facilities projects as identified in the county's financial management plans. So a few of the highlights of what we've accomplished so far. The pension management policy your board adopted last month. Implementing technology, roads, and facilities projects. I think you're all aware of the 5 roofs that have been replaced on county buildings this spring, and we continue to work on those projects. In addition, we broke ground at the Operations Center, which was incredibly exciting for the county, and we're in the process of purchasing new equipment for the Elections Department to update their equipment. Under streamlining current resources, I really wanted to highlight this initiative, this report, because we've done some really important work in this area, and it's something that we continue to examine and look at how we can improve county services. So the first example of streamlining our current resources was the reassignment of Captain Jeff Pettit to the Office of Emergency Services. You're aware of that reassignment, and this really helped to enhance the services and the coordination between OES and the Sheriff's Office. In addition, in Health and Human Services and Social Services, they've been working really hard to cross-train the human service specialist job classification. So there's around 25 human service specialists who are trained to not only provide social services, but they're getting cross-trained in the child support area, as well as some of them in the VSO to help to support the Veteran Service Office and enhance benefits to our veteran community. And then finally, you're aware of the conclusion of the juvenile hall reuse study. That was another example of how we've been working to streamline and look at our resources across the county. Your board's second objective relates to wildfire preparedness. This is somewhat complicated objective. It has sort of three parts to it. Prioritizing the implementation of existing county policies and programs to reduce the risk of wildfire and the effects of wildfire on life, property, and the environment. Also to pursue hazardous vegetation mitigation funding sources and support related community partners with their efforts. And finally, to explore other ways to reduce the threat and damage from wildfires. So as Steve Monahan says, his life is all wildfire all the time. This has been an area of huge focus for the county. We identified 13 distinct initiatives. 6 of them are on track, and 7 of them are sort of in that caution stage. And really, they're in the caution stage because it's such a big lift. It's such a huge project that even though we're putting a lot of resources and effort into this area, we know there's a lot more work to be done. So some of the highlights in the Wildfire Preparedness Board objective include the Ponderosa fuel break, which you just heard details about. That project, again, has a lot of work to be done, and so it's not green, it's yellow. The green waste event was hugely successful, where we provided free green waste drop-off throughout the month of May on the weekends, which removed 1 million pounds of fuel from residential property in Nevada County. We've also applied for over $16 million in grant funding from CAL FIRE and FEMA. We just accepted some funding. Your board just accepted some of that funding from CAL FIRE for the Ponderosa fuel break project, and we have a meeting scheduled with FEMA later this week, which we're hopeful that means that we'll be receiving some FEMA funds in the near future, so we're looking forward to that. We also partnered with the Nevada County Consolidated Fire District for defensible space inspection supervision and better coordination with the fire districts. That was a really important way to improve coordination with our local fire partners, and convened 35 partner agencies to improve coordination. So the county has been hosting quarterly meetings with these 35 organizations to talk about how can we better coordinate across fire, law, and our resource conservation type organizations, both nonprofits and government agencies. And then finally, the Ready Nevada County campaign, which hopefully you're all familiar with, and touting our beautiful logo and promotion of the Ready Nevada County campaign. And again, this is an area where we've had some great success. The mailer going out, ads on the radio, I hear them and know that the community is talking about this. But again, we know there's so much more that we need to do to educate our community around being ready for wildfire. Your board's next objective relates to addressing homelessness. So the objective is to implement a homeless services plan utilizing coordinated entry, a 24/7 service pilot program, and a housing first model to identify and offer services to the most vulnerable homeless population in Nevada County through partnerships with other jurisdictions, law enforcement, and community providers. So for this objective, staff identified 14 initiatives. 9 of those initiatives are on track and moving forward, and 5 of them we have some concerns about, and we're working hard to address those. So first of all, we're excited that the home team was deployed. I think you heard about that recently in a public meeting. This team is going out into the homeless camps to offer services. It includes a nurse, which is a really important piece of having that team going out and providing some medical care to the homeless residents that are living out in homeless camps. We also are on track with our warming shelter planning. So you'll expect to hear more about these contracts moving forward in the next couple of months. But we've been having really positive meetings with Nevada City, with Sierra Roots, with North San Juan, as well as in the Truckee area regarding warming shelter planning for this coming season. We've also received $6 million in grant funding so far this year. That grant funding includes the No Place Like Home funding, which your board is aware of, also the MHSA innovation funding, which is supporting that home team, Prop 47 funding for $1 million, and $2 million in GBHI program funding over the next 1 to 5 years. So some of this funding will be spread out over multiple years, and some of it is to be spent in the first year. We've also increased the number of homeless people that we've housed this year. So here's one of the performance measures that we're tracking, and we first started tracking this last year, really trying to compile all the different programs that help to house homeless people into one statistic so we could show the impact that we're having in all of our various programs. So in 2018, total numbers, we housed 225 individuals and 47 families, and this year we've already housed over 131 individuals and 34 families. So we're feeling positive about those statistics. I also wanted to highlight an initiative related to increasing coordination with the jail to connect homeless individuals to community-based services upon release. So this is a really positive and has a lot of momentum around this collaboration. There's multiple parts that are happening that are coming together. So first of all, staff have been participating in monthly Stepping Up initiative meetings and have hosted their first quarterly public meeting regarding to the Stepping Up program. In addition, through collaboration between behavioral health and the jail commander and the jail staff and WellPath, who's the medical provider in the jail, we've implemented universal health screenings in the jail. We've also developed a collaborative team that consists of the district attorney, the public defender, behavioral health, probation, the jail commander, WellPath, and CEO staff to look into medicated assistant treatment being offered in the jail. So this is treatment for opioid addicted individuals who are using medication to assist them in their recovery and treatment of their opioid addiction. In addition, planning is underway and funding is in place for an additional therapist and an additional substance use counselor in the jail. So that hiring process is in place and those contracts are being negotiated in order to increase those services being available in the jail. And then finally, this week, we'll be submitting another grant application to the Department of Justice for the Justice and Mental Health Collaborative, which would expand diversion for mentally ill people so that they don't end up going to jail. So the next board objective relates to housing. The objective is to leverage county resources to expand opportunities to address housing affordability issues for all target populations in Nevada County through partnerships with other jurisdictions, potential developers, and the Housing Authority. So here we identified 9 initiatives. 5 of those are on track. 1 we have some concerns, 2 are below plan, and 1 of them has been completed. So some of those highlights, we're excited that the Truckee Lofts project ended up getting awarded tax credits in the March round of tax credit applications to the state. Initially, it didn't quite make the cut, and then it was able to bump over when another project fell through. We've also now submitted the Lone Oak and Brunswick Common tax credit applications, thanks to a lot of the work that your board has done in the last few meetings to approve all of the documentation needed for those applications. So we're anxiously awaiting the results of those tax credit applications. The Brunswick Common Resource Center, I think you're all aware that we did not receive the CDBG funding that we had applied for that project. And so we're in the process now to look at alternatives, look at alternative sites, look at interim solutions to figure out what's next there. But that has continued to be an area that we've struggled to move that project forward. Updating the accessory dwelling unit regulations is something that the planning department brought to your board earlier this spring, and your board completed that process. And finally, a landlord mitigation fund has been created with $50,000 of HEAP state funding. And this fund does a couple of things. One, it helps to recruit landlords for our rapid rehousing programs, so our programs that help homeless individuals return to housing. This program will help to support that recruitment process and a toolkit for landlords to understand the resources that are available to them, as well as a fund that if their property is damaged or they end up having trouble with the tenants that we help to house in their properties, that they would have ability to recover any damages that were created to their property. So that's a project that's been moving forward this spring and is ready to start recruiting landlords to participate. Your board's next objective relates to cannabis regulations. The objective is to adopt a county cannabis ordinance and implement an effective cannabis compliance and permitting program to promote permitted cannabis activities. So for this board objective, we identified 4 initiatives. 2 of them are moving forward, but are a lot of work. We're still making them happen. 1 is complete and 1 hasn't been started. So I'll explain that more to you here on this slide. So first of all, your board adopted an ordinance back in May, which was a long process to get to that place, and we're excited to have that ordinance in place. Permitting is underway. As of when I created this presentation, and it changes every day, there were 8 permits issued and about 60 more being reviewed. Enforcement coordination with the sheriff and the state water board is underway. We're still working out some of the details on how all that's how the coordination will work, but we've been in good communication between CDA and the sheriff and the state water board regarding those enforcement activities. And then finally, again, the blue circle means that activity hasn't started yet, and that is the tax collection system. So we expect we won't really see tax collection happening until this fall or maybe January with the final quarter of this calendar year. Where we'll really start to see some tax collection. But the tax collector has been working on getting the systems in place and the communication with CDA so that they know who are the permitted cannabis operations, and so that they can be in communication with those future taxpayers. Economic development is your board's next priority. The objective is to support job-enhancing economic development with an emphasis on infrastructure that expands or preserves commerce and provides leadership and coordination opportunities to bring funding sources and community partnerships together, including the Economic Resource Council, Sierra Business Council, RCRC, CSAC, and the USDA. So here for economic development, staff identified 14 initiatives. 9 of those are on track. 1 has some concerns. 1 is below plan. 1 is complete, and 2 have not yet been started. So some of those highlights. 3 of our initiatives relate to broadband. 1 is to support race communications in the development of the Bright Fiber network. We've done a few things related to supporting race, 1 being the ground lease up at the airport for some of their equipment, as well as helping through the permitting process. Sierra Business Council has been a really important partner around broadband, and at the next board meeting on July 23rd, you're going to see a proposal for a $250,000 broadband funding program that Sierra Business Council would help us oversee to help to improve broadband infrastructure in Nevada County, and Steve Monahan will be bringing that to your board at the next meeting. The 3rd broadband initiative relates to the Gold Country Broadband Consortium is developing a broadband plan for Nevada County. So again, this is in conjunction with the Sierra Business Council. They worked with the Gold Country Broadband Consortium to host a Civic Spark intern who has been spending the last 11 months developing this broadband plan, and we expect that plan to come to your board in August for review and approval. So that will help identify where are the opportunities in Nevada County, kind of where are the lowest hanging fruit, and that will help feed into the $250,000 funding program that we're working with Sierra Business Council on. So beyond broadband, you heard this morning a presentation about the Combi Road Sewer Expansion and Road Improvements Project from Tricia Tillotson and Sean Powers. Also been working on updating the Penn Valley Area Plan and had several community meetings regarding that update involving the community. The Donner Summit Visitors Center is exciting developments there, where the Placer County has just approved some funding to help move on to the next phase. And so both Placer and Nevada counties will be providing some funding to help support the next phase of developing the visitor center, which is the architectural plans and really costing out what the project would look like and what ongoing operations would look like. So that project is moving forward. And then the North San Juan Fire Flow project, this is another one of those projects that we have struggled to identify funding for. The project cost has increased as we've looked at it in more detail, and so we're behind plan on our expectations regarding that project. The next board objective is civic engagement. So the objective is to increase and improve public awareness and civic engagement through educational information programs. Here we identified 6 initiatives. 5 of those are on track, and 1 of them we still struggle with to some extent. The highlights include increasing our Nevada County News subscription, our Friday newsletter that goes out every Friday afternoon. Our subscriptions have more than doubled since last year. Of people who are receiving those updates. We've also added Nextdoor and Instagram to our social media platforms, and we've participated in many and coordinated many town hall and community meetings. So these include the Wildfire Speaker Series, the Truckee Wildfire Town Hall, the Brunswick Commons Town Hall, the Building Fair. I mentioned the Penn Valley Area Plan. In North San Juan, there was a town hall meeting, which I know many staff and Supervisor Hook attended, as well as HHSA does numerous educational events with the community regarding their programs. Parks and Recreation, this is an objective that somewhat carried over from the prior year, really just to complete the feasibility analysis of a potential reorganization of the Western County Park and Rec districts for increased collaboration and efficient operations of facilities and administration. So here there's really just one step left, which is to complete that feasibility analysis, and your board did approve a contract extension with EPS, who is the consultant helping to complete that study. And then finally, the last objective is the redevelopment of Lot 6. So Lot 6 is our current Corp yard, which is up by the airport. And knowing that we are moving those operations to the new operations center, we're looking at what's the best use of that existing facility. And we are in process of having a consultant do a highest and best use study. So that study is almost complete, and we will be receiving the results very soon. So with that, I know that was a lot of information. I'm open to questions and look forward to your board's discussion.
Molly, thanks very much. That was a wonderfully concise presentation, very informative. And there's, of course, there's a lot of depth behind it, as the report indicates. And it's pretty exciting just seeing what's happening with regard to applying new technology to help us understand where we are with regard to implementing and achieving board objectives. Quick question before we start off with questions from my colleagues. Is this report online for the public who might want to review it?
So it was released as part of the packet for this board meeting, and so that document is public, but we will also have it on your Board of Supervisors webpage so that the public can access it that way.
Fantastic. Anyway, great start. So questions for Molly. I'll start with Ed.
Well, Molly, I don't have any questions. I just thank you for a great presentation, and I just think it's great that we have this information. We know we've passed priorities in January, but we don't always know what steps have been taken, and this is, when we go out into the community, this is really helpful to have, so thank you. Thank you to all the staff.
Sue?
Oh, I would just echo that, and the packet was so full of information, just it kind of dialed right down to what was going on in each place, and saved me from asking a lot of questions all the time. So thank you.
Dan?
You know, what stands out for me on this report is the number of partnerships that the county's developed to accomplish the initiatives and objectives that we established back in January. Another thing that stands out with me is the fact that, you know, we really don't seem to do any heavy lifting. All the heavy lifting's done out there, and the quality of the county staff and accomplishing what we set as priorities is impressive. And I just want to applaud the different county departments, county staff, for all the work they do and to make us look good. So thank you.
Heidi?
I love this report. I love this software. I wasn't sure I was going to love it. I thought I would like it, but I love it. This is, I want to give credit to you, Molly, for your work on this, to Allison Lehman for putting this together or making this an initiative, as she started as CEO. It's all about the data. This is providing us the data to show us what we're actually accomplishing, where we may need to check in, to help us see overall what we feel like, if we feel like our vision is being implemented, and absolutely all the work is being done out there. So I'm looking forward to this. I hope the media will take advantage of this so they can do great reporting on all the good stuff we're doing and not have to scramble to find out what we're doing, as well as the public. You know, this is a source of presentations we can be making all around the county to help people understand better what we do, why we do what we do, what things we can't do, what's slipping. So I just see a million different possible applications for this. You mentioned, which I appreciate, that we can add things, as you know, of course there's room to add as we move forward, but I also want to caution not to make it too much bigger than it is, because it's so nice to be able to see it all in one concise package. And I think, seems to me, it really hits all the really most important things we need to be reporting out on. This is really, really great. Huge improvement. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'll just add again, it's a wonderful start. A huge thank you to staff for putting their time into this, you, Molly, and everyone else who contributed to it. And I hope to see this evolving over time to help us understand how we're doing with regard to performance. I mean, not just achieving, but achieving effectively, achieving in a cost-effective manner. And also understanding what our unmet needs might be. For example, under wildfire preparedness, the third element of the board objective is to explore other ways to reduce the threat and damage from wildfires. You know, I'm not sure I'm seeing enough of that from my perspective, quite frankly. So that need for creative analysis of need. That's kind of an awkwardly worded sentence, but to understand what our needs are and to find ways to address them, both through our current routines as well as through new routines, new programs, new policies. This could be a very useful tool for helping achieve that. And so over time, I mean, we're just getting our feet wet with regard to utilizing this software, and I'm sure over time this will become even more powerful than it is right now. So thanks very much. Any public comment on this?
Matthew Coulter. Yeah, that was great, and even the stuff that was on the screen would be a great little insert for the union that people could see, you know, what's going on. It was really clear, up, down, middle, you know, that's easy to understand for people that don't use computers and don't do pie charts and, you know, percentages and things. On the homeless, I just had one question on the juvenile hall. I know for years that the homeless organizations had asked to use it as a warming shelter, and was told that it was only to be used for what the grant built it for, which kind of left it in limbo. And now I understand that 4-H and the Girl Scouts and the Youth Center and possibly even the Dispatch Center might be moving there. And I was just wondering what had changed in the dynamics of that facility that now allows it to be used for a lot of different things, and as before it couldn't be used for anything but juvenile hall.
Mr. Coulter, I'm not sure that anything has changed necessarily, but we'll have, Allison, could you address that question? Or somebody from staff?
I'm happy to address it, if that's okay. Yeah, we presented to the board recently regarding their use of juvenile hall, and there's a couple of pieces of information that are key to understanding the future use and the recommendation that was made. So the first is that the Department of Justice funded 80% of the cost of building the hall, and the Department of Justice requires that the juvenile hall be used for a criminal justice purpose. So that's one of the elements, and by remaining a detention facility, which the juvenile hall will remain a detention facility in part, it meets that need of the Department of Justice to remain a criminal justice facility to detain youth in part of the facility. The other piece is that the State Board of Community Corrections also oversees all correctional facilities, including juvenile halls, and part of the regulations that they put in place are that only that adults and juveniles cannot be housed together. And so any use of the juvenile hall, other than it being a juvenile hall, would have to be limited to youth and youth facilities. And so those limitations by the state and the federal government allowed us to expand some of the services, but keep it a juvenile hall, and that was why that recommendation was made to the board.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Molly.
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Coulter. Any additional public comment? Seeing no additional, oh, sir. Okay.
I'll take a minute. Good morning, everyone.
You have three.
Three, I know. I see my. I'm Rick Partridge, a part-time resident of Cooper Road for the last year and a half, full-time resident of San Jose for the last almost 20 years. Just retired from San Jose State University, where I taught in the business school. So I've got some time on my hands. And one of the reasons I came to my first meeting today, having read the weekly newsletter since I got here, is to see what's going on. And frankly, having served on boards, commissions, neighborhood associations in San Jose for the last 20 years, I didn't know what my expectations were coming in here today, but I am wowed. The presentation is really why I came, to kind of see what's going on here in a very concise way. But seeing the way everybody operates, the level of engagement from the community, and the one thing that I am going to get involved in initially, and I've already talked to Steve, is I don't have cell phone coverage, and I have very expensive and very bad AT&T DSL where I live. And that's a real gate for me in terms of moving up here full time. To be on my property and have something happen to me, my husband, or my dogs, and not be able to get into my house. About a month ago, my postal delivery guy was up on Blue Tent Road. His car was stopped and running. He was slumped over at his steering wheel. And we had to go door to door, finding someone with a landline that could call emergency services and get someone out there to get assistance. Now, fortunately, he was fine, right? He had just passed out. But it's great to be a part of the community. Thanks.
Welcome, by the way.
Thank you.
So seeing no additional public comment, we'll close public comment. And this is not an action item, but again, great presentation, Molly. Job well done.
Thank you.
And thanks again to everybody and to the staff who was engaged in this. It's a wonderful start to a very important ongoing process.
Yep. Thanks.
You're welcome.